120-hour TEFL course in just a few hours. Then listen up. My name is Nats. Today I'm going to take you through the Module 2 of the TEFL Universal course. I've enrolled at TEFL Universal. You can find the link in the description box. But even if you're doing another course, I'm certain that these videos will assist you to pass and prepare you for your online teaching adventure. The course that I'm doing is really super cheap and really easy. You have 6 months to complete the course, and it consists of 10 modules, with a quiz at the end of each module, of 15 multiple choice questions, and you need 40% to pass. If you're on a similar journey, please subscribe, like and share. I will try to include a PDF in the description box. 2.1. What makes a competent and effective EFL teacher? As in any work role, the goal a person aims for is competence. However, what is competence, and what makes a competent teacher? The Oxford Dictionaries tells us that competent means having the necessary ability, knowledge or skill to do something successfully. Our experience tells us that you also need to include habits when considering how competent you are as a teacher. For example, it seems to us that turning up at the classroom on time, ready to greet your learners and welcoming them as they come into the classroom is an excellent habit. And so is you reflecting on how the lesson panned out, immediately after the lesson or as soon as possible. So, let's expand our definition of a competent teacher to a person who has the knowledge, ability, skills and habits necessary to teach successfully. We hope you agree with this definition. Notice that we changed the order of the words a bit. There was a practical reason for this, as you will be able to recall these critical components of competence by the mnemonic cache for knowledge, ability, skills and habits. So, when you're asked to contribute your thoughts on what makes a competent teacher during a staff meeting, you'll have a good aid memoir of the mnemonic cache to get you moving. 1. Adheres to a code of practice for teachers at all times. ACCREDITAT, our accrediting body, has developed a code of practice for you. The code is based on their experiences and the experiences of many excellent TEFL teachers over the past 30 years. ACCREDITAT Code of Practice for Teachers. At the heart of the ACCREDITAT Code of Practice for Teachers is a conviction that excellence is achieved via competence. A belief in the worth, individuality and dignity of each person. A commitment to truth, excellence and democratic principles. An allegiance to freedom to learn and teach. A dedication to the principle of equal opportunity for all. Members of the TEFL teaching profession are committed to demonstrating the following values and ideals which underpin the profession. 1. Honesty and integrity. Creating and maintaining appropriate professional relationships in the classroom, school and in public. Acting with impartiality, truthfulness and honesty. Displaying consistently high standards of personal and professional behavior. Refraining from disclosing information about colleagues in the course of professional service unless disclosure serves a compelling professional purpose or is required by law. Refraining from any abuse of a position of authority or relationships with learners, parents, caregivers or colleagues for financial, political or personal gain. Acting according to the law. 2. Dignity and diversity. Valuing diversity and treating learners, parents, caregivers and colleagues equitably and fairly and with care and compassion while respecting the uniqueness of family and socio-economic backgrounds, cultures, races, religions and beliefs. Valuing the learning needs, effort, and potential, and acknowledging the uniqueness of each learner. Improving the well-being and progress of those learners with special needs. Fostering the valuing of diversity and encouraging the development of international, multicultural, gender, and indigenous and other perspectives. Allowing, reasonably, the learners access to varying points of view. 3. Respect and trust. Acknowledging that mutual respect, trust, and confidentiality of personal information underpin all relationships with learners and their families unless disclosure of any information serves a compelling professional purpose or is required by law. Acknowledging the contribution that mutual respect, trust, and privacy make to learners' well-being and learning. Acknowledging the desires and hopes of the learners' families and caregivers. Acting with educational colleagues and the broader community in ways that enhance the profession. Accepting the status, responsibilities, and authority of colleagues. Remaining open to constructive criticism from peers and showing respect and consideration for different viewpoints. 4. Responsibility and accountability. Giving priority to the education and welfare of all learners in our care. Guiding and encouraging learners to achieve their potential, ensuring all learners have an equal opportunity to reach their potential. Creating interactive learning environments, rather than environments in which the learners are merely passive recipients of information. Regarding themselves as learners and engaging in continuous professional development, and improving teaching and learning strategies for themselves and colleagues. Working collaboratively, cooperatively, and enthusiastically with colleagues and other educational bodies in the best interests of the education and welfare of the learners. Taking heed to clarify their personal views and those of the local educational authorities. Promoting the ongoing development of teaching as a profession. Upholding school policies, procedures, and practices. Modeling the behavior, attitudes, and positive values which are widely accepted in society and encouraging learners to apply them and critically appreciate their significance. 5. Care and protection. Having empathy and respect for, and rapport with, learners and their families and caregivers, colleagues, and communities. Committing to learners' well-being and learning through the practice of positive influence, professional judgment, and empathy in practice. Adhering to the school's learner protection policies and procedures. Protecting learners from conditions harmful to learning or health and safety. Refraining from any racial, gender, political, verbal, physical, or emotional abuse, embarrassment, or harassment. Being generous with praise and giving positive inputs and feedback. 6. Fairness and justice. Being fair and reasonable at all times. Being committed to the well-being of individuals and the community and the common good. Resolving competing claims or problems arising from different ethical principles and various interest groups through reflective professional discussion. Note this, view this as an excellent aid memoir to reflect on what you should be doing on a day-to-day basis. Keep it by your side at all times. Reflect on it frequently. It will serve you well in your TEFL career. 2. Demonstrates that she is warm, caring, and approachable. You can show this in many ways, e.g., being approachable at all times, being a person that learners can go to with any concerns or to share an amusing story, being an active listener, trying very hard to be consistent even although you may feel under the weather, etc. 3. Establishes good rapport and relationships with all learners at all times. This doesn't mean that you strive to be humorous and have lots of fun in your classroom. Some older learners, in particular, may not take to this. They may feel that too much fun in the classroom is eating up their valuable time. Inexperienced teachers often misinterpret fun for learning. Although it's good to have some fun, the critical question you must ask yourself is, what did they learn successfully? Alternatively, some learners may come from a culture where humor in the classroom is not an accepted thing. Rapport exists when people develop a feeling of harmony, well-being, and security. We'll explore how to build rapport and relationships a little bit later. The same processes are involved whether we're applying them to learners or anyone else in the school. 4. Fosters a constructive learning experience. Again, we'll cover this thoroughly in a later module, but for the moment here are some suggestions. Everything is planned. There are excellent class routines. Standards of behavior are agreed. An inclusive environment is created where all learners are treated fairly and equally. 5. Creates a sense of classroom community. A classroom community is one where everyone feels accepted and supported as a vital part of the group. There is a sense of belonging. Collaboration to achieve the goal is at the center. Positive social skills are promoted. Learners know they can depend not only on the teacher but also on the whole class. Creating a classroom community spirit is critical to the success of you and your learners. This promotes learning, engagement, and retention. The more learners feel comfortable, the more they will participate, engage, learn, and retain what they have learned. 6. Sets high, yet achievable, expectations for his learners. The expectations that you propound for your learners will affect their achievement levels. If you set low achievement expectations, then it's likely you'll get low achievement levels. Generally, learners give their teacher as much or as little that is expected of them by the teacher. So, set high, yet achievable, expectations. 7. Plans and works flexibly. Although she has planned well, she knows from experience that things don't always go to plan. So, she also reflects on what might not go to plan. Based on continuous monitoring, she is ready to change tack a bit or find a new way to present the material seamlessly, without anyone else being aware of these necessary changes. 8. Adjusts own level of English to suit the class. No fancy or sophisticated language. And no prizes for using this type of language. 9. Always gives clear, precise instructions. When giving instructions, these instructions may very well have a different value and weighting amongst their learners. Thus, the need to make instructions as simple, clear, and precise as possible. 10. Chooses appropriate moments for correcting the learner's language. When learners are in full flow and are communicating, it's often wise to let it run even if there are mistakes. After they have finished, you can then pick up on the mistakes or errors. 11. Understands the need to use a range of relevant and suitable materials and resources. 12. Works successfully with learners at various levels. 13. Enables learners to feel a sense of progress. 14. Assesses fairly and frequently, and plans are based on assessment. 15. Recognizes and understands the range of backgrounds and experiences within the learners group. 16. Employs a variety of teaching styles and approaches at different stages and in different contexts. 17. Understands the broad range of learner needs, including the needs of learners with learning difficulties. 18. Reduces teacher talking time (TTT) and maximizes student talking time (STT). 19. Reflects and self-appraises continuously. 20. Facilitates language learning and acquisition both inside and outside the classroom. Note that the end goal for you should be a mix of these traits and characteristics. In essence, the end goal you are aiming for is a competent and effective teacher cocktail. Let's spend a bit more time on point 20. 2.2. A competent and effective teacher facilitates language learning and acquisition both inside and outside the classroom. Some teachers are glued to the classroom. They are blind to the opportunities for learning outside the classroom. First, let's explore some critical elements for classroom teaching. Then we'll explore the outside teaching environment. 1. Inside the classroom. You can facilitate language learning greatly by providing a selection of suitable materials to support the learning. Of course, you'll use exercises in the coursebook, and you'll make up your supplementary materials where resources are short. However, the best way of all is to use authentic materials. 1. Authentic materials. It is paramount that your learners are exposed to authentic materials. Authentic materials are materials which are unscripted and unedited and are not explicitly developed for language learning purposes. They haven't been fabricated for a language learning purpose. Authentic materials ensure that your learners are exposed to the real world. Here are some examples. Postcards and letters. Bulletin board notices. Extracts from newspapers, including articles, advertisements, classifieds, crosswords, horoscopes, features, etc. Comics and cartoons. Shopping receipts. Airline tickets and itineraries. Photographs. Picture sequences. Creative texts, such as poems and extracts from plays, short stories, and novels. Recordings of casual conversations amongst native speakers. Radio and TV news and weather broadcasts. Public announcements, e.g., from airports. Messages recorded from answering machines. Telephone conversations. Transactions in stores and public institutions such as libraries. The list is never ending. Think. How can I use this item to engage my learners? Every one of these real-life items could be used for practicing and enhancing listening, speaking, writing and reading skills. It just takes a bit of thought. Let's take one of the more challenging ones, shopping receipts. Let's imagine you have collected a range of shopping lists, discarded by customers as they exit a variety of shops. Just dig into the rubbish bin. Listening and speaking. One of the receipts contains the following: a Real Madrid strip, a Real Madrid scarf, Real Madrid socks, a Real Madrid flag. You could read this out, including the prices, and ask a range of questions. Which team does the buyer, or the person they are buying these for, like? An easy one to get started. Who bought this? Intentionally, there's no clue. So, this will lead to a discussion debate. Why do you think they bought them? Again, intentionally, there's no right answer. So, more discussion. Can you remember which was the most expensive or cheapest item? Can anyone tell me how much this person spent altogether, in total? Would you buy these items if you had the same amount of money? Again, a range of answers: yes, no. I'd buy Barcelona things, etc. Writing. Follow up on the last point. Learners write a few words about what they would buy if they had the same amount of money given to them as a present. Reading. The learners read out their piece of writing. This leads to questions and further discussion. There are many engaging activities you could do with shopping receipts. Because these are real-world items, your learners are aware of them, and this background knowledge will inspire them when practicing the skills. Recordings. Again, aim to use authentic materials. Carry a little recording device with you into a busy supermarket or train station. Steer clear of pre-made recordings, constructed for a learning purpose. These seldom demonstrate authentic speech. Here are some key points relating to authentic speech. Authentic speech creates problems for the listener. Brevity of chunks. We typically break speech into shorter chunks. In conversation, for example, people take turns to speak, usually in short turns of a few seconds each. Pronunciation. The pronunciation of words is often blended or slurred, and noticeably different from the phonological representation of some words in the dictionary. Lexis. The lexis is often colloquial. In spoken English, for example, you might use that guy, whereas in writing you would use that man. Noise. There will be a certain amount of noise with bits of the discourse unintelligible to the listener. This may be because the words are not spoken clearly or are not known to the listener. Preparation before using authentic materials. Evaluate the content and ensure it's at the right level for your learners. Choose topics that are relevant, practical, and of interest to your learners. Ensure the material is of an appropriate length, to ensure the topic can be covered in the timescale set. A successful approach is to plan lessons and activities based around the authentic materials that will introduce a new lexical chunk or new single words, but not too many, build on an idea they are already aware of, make a slightly complex concept more straightforward. 2. Self-Access Center, SAC. A self-access center is merely a space in your classroom or another designated room, where your learners can work independently or in pairs at their own pace. There may or may not be one in the school where you will be teaching. A very good self-access center will include a range of materials that match the needs and learning preferences of your learners. At a basic level, it will contain some appropriate readers, laminated worksheets or work cards, and some authentic laminated materials, such as newspaper articles, magazine articles, and cartoons. Depending on the financial investment by the school, the SAC may also include other facilities such as a recorder with headsets and pre-recorded cassettes, a video recorder, a DVD player and films, a PC or PCs with language learning software, perhaps connected to the internet. What's the purpose? Here are some valuable purposes. To allow learners to work independently at their pace. To allow those who have finished a task early to further their learning, instead of just sitting in their seats and twiddling their thumbs, waiting for others to finish. To differentiate your lessons in a mixed ability setting. That is, the SAC could be used, say, for a group of high achievers who have completed early or for a group of lower achievers who may need a bit more practice on some item. 2. Outside the classroom. Never view your classroom as an island. Never ever. In addition to bringing bits of the real world into the classroom, e.g. newspapers, CDs and videos, we can, if allowed by the school management, take our learners out into the world during class time. Here we are effectively using the outside world as an extension of the classroom. Learners need to use and understand language outside the classroom so that they can progress. Embrace outside activities, and you will observe remarkable progress in your learners as they practice what has been learned back in class. Outside tasks may seem more obvious activities for intermediate or advanced learners. But the earlier learners begin to engage in outside world activities, the better their progress will be. So, consider doing this with beginners. The key starting point should be survival language. Clearly, at lower levels, lots of preparation is needed so that learners have the necessary language backup, ability and motivation to undertake the set tasks. You could start with a bit of reading, e.g. street names, where most of the speaking will be between learners and not with native speakers. You could teach some simple questions they could address to native speakers, e.g. how much. The next step could be short conversational pieces where learners can try questions and follow up the answer given with a typical phrase such as, "Thank you." It takes lots of planning, energy, and assistance from others where the group is big, to ensure the learners are safe outside and have someone to turn to when they get into language difficulties. But it's all worth it. So, what are some of the benefits? Remember that outside world language is authentic language. Through your teaching, the learners will be initiating the simple language transactions and will hear the expected responses. Being able to deal with some everyday transactions in the outside world will be motivating. What types of activities could you arrange? These will depend on learner levels and what aspect of the language you wish to practice. Identifying objects in streets and parks. Following maps and directions. Visiting shops. Interviews and surveys with English-speaking people. Visiting museums, art galleries, historical sites. Obtaining information from public offices, e.g. post office, tourist bureau. Visiting travel agents. Attending the cinema showing an English-speaking movie or a non-English-speaking movie with subtitles. Of course, many of these activities can still be carried out where you are based in a non-English-speaking country. There are many organizations, banks, hotels, supermarket chains, museums and so on, that have native English speakers working within them. It will just require some additional energy from you to organize the visit. And seek out native English tourists and backpackers. These outside world activities not only make language study more meaningful and motivating, they will also stand your learners in good stead when the time comes for them to go forth as completely independent learners, without your support. 2.3. Learners and teachers' expectations of each other. You cannot assume that your expectations of the classroom will be the same as your learners' expectations. Don't judge the learners based on your cultural background and educational experiences. In some cultures, learners are generally expected to be silent and passive learners. Japan. In others, the norm will be a noisy and active classroom with lots of questions being asked by learners. Spain. Also, the social foundations on which the school operates may be very different from your own experiences. Some may be based on authority and punishment, while others may be based on rewards. Learners come to class with an increasing diversity of cultural communication styles, multicultural values, and nonverbal communication behaviors that you may not be familiar with. To improve cross-cultural communicative competence and to reach learners from a variety of cultural backgrounds, you will need to raise your awareness of significant differences in verbal and nonverbal communication between cultures. This is especially true of those differences that have a direct impact on teaching and learning in the multicultural classroom. We will explore this further in the section Cross-Cultural Aspects in the Classroom in Module 9. For the moment, here are a few examples. Learners' learning preferences may differ from yours. Your previous learning experiences may have influenced the way you think learners should learn. However, your learners may have different expectations of how they can best learn. Some learners may expect to use a coursebook every day, but your approach may be entirely different. What you think the learners need may be much different from what some learners want. 2.4. There's more to the teacher role than you might think. Choosing what the learners will learn. Tutoring them to grasp the learning points. Creating an enjoyable atmosphere and utilizing pleasant activities to ensure the learning takes place. 2.4.1. The range of teacher roles. Assessor. Described above. Controller. Ensuring that the whole class is tuned into what needs to be done, e.g., starting a new activity. Ensuring that classroom order is maintained. Facilitator. Knowing what facilitation is. Stepping back and allowing your learners to find their way along the language journey, while still monitoring and motivating as needs be. Being available and ready to act as a resource when needed. Guide. Guiding those who are unsure of what to do. Manager. Ensuring all the nitty-gritty elements that underpin a successful lesson are carried out, e.g., giving effective and coherent instructions, arranging the most practical seating, ensuring guidelines are carried out as planned, and ensuring that tasks are completed as scheduled. Ensuring group dynamics skills are utilized to provide efficient classroom routines, smooth transitions, and different types of groupings to encourage specific types of learning. Making sure there is a sense of community and belonging in the classroom. Monitor. Observing and analyzing ongoing interactions, daily. Monitoring what's going well and what's not going so well, daily. Reflecting on the evidence and deciding what needs to be done in a feedback session later. Being able to deliver practical, constructive, and timely feedback to all learners you are responsible for. Recognizing when there is a need to act as a counselor, providing emotional support as needed to help learners feel confident in their learning. Motivator. Motivating some of your learners who may not be so keen on the activity or who may be tired or are thinking elsewhere, perhaps due to the stresses and strains of life outside the classroom. Understanding that lessons should be dynamic, meaningful, and stimulating and should respond to the learner's emotional, cognitive, and linguistic needs. Remembering that the whole person comes to school, so even the intrinsically motivated person yesterday may not be the motivated person today. Needs analyst. Identifying the learning needs expressed by your learners. Accounting for differing language ability levels and varying backgrounds, interests, and needs. Remember, learners may have other requirements that you may identify, e.g., behavioral or social needs, but here we use the term needs analyst solely in relation to learners' learning needs. Planner, organizer, task setter. Preparing lesson plans for the class or age group you are assigned to. accounting for differing language ability levels and varying backgrounds, interests, and needs. Embracing a multicultural perspective in the planning and encouraging this in the learning episodes. Accounting for maximum learner interaction within the plans. Ensuring that there is plenty of opportunity for authentic and communicative language use. Setting out the roadmap for the lesson and organizing all the tasks and activities for your learners. Prompter, editor. Being ready always to prompt learners when they are unsure and not just giving them the answer or moving swiftly to another learner who can supply the solution. Having the skills to edit learners' contributions at the right time and demonstrating in a crystal clear manner how the learners could best present that piece of language and why your suggested way may help. Resource producer. Producing more appropriate, more relevant and often much better materials than a coursebook offers. Ensuring a variety of material mediums, paper, image-based, audio and video, realia, where appropriate. 2.4.2. Peer observations. 1. Peer observation. Peer observation allows teachers to learn from each other in a non-threatening environment, where there is no judgmental outcome and an atmosphere of trust between the participants. Teachers will share ideas and suggestions openly and constructively to their mutual professional benefit. You can observe experienced teachers in action so that you learn from how they do it. Experienced teachers can observe you so that you can benefit from their ideas and suggestions. What are the kinds of things you could notice when you are observing an experienced teacher? This teacher observation will give you a good idea about what we would aim to observe if we were in this position. Also, if there is a set procedure for observing new, inexperienced teachers, the teacher observation form will give you useful guidance on what your observer is likely looking for. Teacher observation form, page 1. Instructional skills. Yes, no. Comments. Assessment. Uses assessment feedback to modify teaching methods and curriculum. Atmosphere. Creates a relaxed environment where learners are willing to use the target language and take language risks, as necessary. Attention. Attends to all learners, the amount of attention depending on learners' individual needs. Body language. Uses effective voice, body language, mime and gestures. Correction and feedback. Knows what to check, what to ignore, promotes self-correction and gives immediate feedback on errors, questions, queries. Cultural awareness. Demonstrates cultural awareness. Examples. Uses adequate examples that are meaningful, clear and varied. Knowledge. Demonstrates an understanding of the subject matter. Materials. Relates materials to learners' lives, their class lives and their outside world lives. Modes. Uses a variety of teaching modes, e.g. seeing, hearing, speaking, touching, writing, and reading. Learner-centered learning. Facilitates learners' learning. Teacher talking time TTT is minimized as much as possible, giving learners ample opportunity to practice. Techniques. Uses a variety of techniques, e.g. handouts, audio-visual, drills, role plays, small group, pairs and individual work. Technology. Integrates technologies to enhance language learning, e.g. recordings, computers. Timing. Allows appropriate timing for each step, activity. Visuals. Visual work is clear and engaging, e.g. board work, charts, slides, pictures, illustrations, etc. Warmer. Starts with an engaging warmer that relates to what the learners will learn. Teacher observation form, page 2. Organizational skills. Yes, no. Comments. Lesson planning. Lesson shows evidence of sequencing. Connection to past and future. Goal focus. Task analysis and is appropriate for learner level. Materials. Has designed or adapted materials to address learner needs. Retention activities. Regularly includes activities that help retention, e.g. review, summary, memory exercises. Classroom management skills. Adult learners. Relates to, and engages with, learners as adults. Evaluation. allows time at end of class to evaluate the success of the lesson in terms of comprehension, relevance, and significance. Expectations. Sets clear expectations for classroom interaction and behavior. Multi-level classrooms. Recognizes and manages different levels of learners. Outside world. Brings the outside world into the classroom with media, field trips, etc. Records and data. Maintains attendance and progress reports. Staying on topic. Sticks to the subject and doesn't wander off topic. Learner accomplishments. Helps learners to see and verbalize their progress. Timekeeping. Starts and ends class on time. Wait time. Allows several seconds for learners to respond. 2.4.3 Co-teaching. What exactly is co-teaching? Co-teaching is where you will work with a local teacher in the classroom. The co-teaching relationship can differ, depending on the local teacher. In some situations, you will take over the whole class with the local teacher in attendance to support you, as necessary. In other situations, you may be carrying out daily routines and pronunciations with learners while the local teacher is teaching the main content of the lesson. Not all co-teaching episodes work out seamlessly. There are several challenges which you need to meet and overcome. Challenge 1. Recognizing that the onus is on you to fit in. You are a temporary visitor to the country. It may sound harsh to say this, but it's you who needs to fit in with your new colleagues. You need to meld in right away. The onus is not on them to fit in with you as they go about their day-to-day roles which they may have been doing in the same way for many years. So, grasp this point with both hands, as they say. People differ between cultures in many respects, e.g. how they plan things, how they relate to their learners, how they relate to other colleagues, what importance they give to certain teaching practices, e.g. upholding rote learning over different teaching approaches, and how they think about things. We are not suggesting that you can fully understand a culture when working temporarily in the culture, but you can glean and absorb much valuable information by researching the people and their country before you go. To overcome this challenge, you need to bite the bullet and accept that the onus is on you to fit in. If you do this, you will fit in well, and people will respect you for doing so. Where there's respect, there's trust. Also, where there's trust, others will listen to you and your point of view. Challenge 2. The need to build a strong rapport and relationship with your co-teacher. Here's what to do. Building rapport. Rapport exists when two people develop a feeling of harmony, well-being, and security. It's a bit like striking a tuning fork and holding it near to another tuning fork. The second will also start to vibrate even though they do not touch. Rapport occurs between people when they work in an open, trusting, and contented relationship. Rapport is all about meeting people on their level, making them feel at ease. It is based on mutual respect and agreement. When you relate initially to your prospective co-teacher, you can choose one of two standpoints from which to start. You can focus on the differences between you. Or you can emphasize the similarities between you, the things you agree on, feel and think the same about, and react the same way to. If you emphasize the differences, it will be virtually impossible to achieve rapport. The emphasis on similarities occurs not just in the words you will use when talking to your co-teacher, but also in the way you express yourself through your body language, speech, and attitude. Building a strong relationship for the future. Once you have established the initial successful rapport, you can then focus on building a strong relationship for the future. Here's what to do. Display honesty at all times. If, for example, you are asked later as to how you feel the lesson went, let either by you or your co-teacher tell the truth honestly and objectively, supported by actual events and evidence, not how you feel it went. Demonstrate your desire to help at all times. Don't just wait until you are asked. Observe and think about where you can support your co-teacher and act on it. Ensure your actions speak louder than your words. Demonstrate your competence at all times. Don't go into your co-teacher's class without being fully prepared in terms of your knowledge, attitude, skills, and habits. Keep all your promises and commitments. For example, if you say you will be ready and prepared to teach a lesson on Monday at 9 a.m., ensure you are. Always speak naturally and from the heart. Don't take on different personas to suit the situation. Be yourself at all times. Continue to display empathy, i.e., standing in your co-teacher's shoes and communicating from her point of view. Ask more than you tell. Don't give the impression that you know it all. Instead of telling your co-teacher what you can do, word it so that you are seeking her advice, based on her experience. I think I could do it this way. What do you think? Would it work? Show your co-teacher that you care about her and her success. Don't get wrapped up in your success in the classroom. Take time, intentionally, to express your admiration about what and how she achieved as a result of the lesson she led. Finally, your unbounded enthusiasm will go a long way to establishing a strong relationship with your co-teacher. Challenge 3. Collaborating well. To meet this challenge, you need to reflect long and hard on how collaboration is built. In essence, collaboration is all about team playing. Here's what to do. 1. Listen actively and respectfully. Collaboration is dependent on each co-teacher listening carefully and actively to each other when the other is speaking, and thereby they can assimilate the messages into one vision. Demonstrate reliability and consistency. Successful co-teaching collaborators get the work done together and do their fair share of working hard and meeting the commitments. Share information without restrictions. Excellent collaborators don't hoard teaching ideas, materials, or information. They share it freely. Communicate openly and constructively. Successful collaboration needs people who speak up and express their thoughts and ideas, directly, honestly, and with respect for each other. Function as an active participant. Excellent collaborators are active participants. They're fully engaged in the work of their co-teaching team and do not sit passively on the sidelines. Be cooperative, not competitive. Excellent collaborators cooperate and do not compete. They are motivated when they see their co-teacher achieve and, instead of competing with the achiever, they emulate and align with them. Be flexible and adaptable to change. Flexibility is a necessary trait when working with others. If you are rigid in your approach to new concepts or change, then your co-teacher will be negatively impacted as they too must adapt. Be a good negotiator. Successful collaborators know how to negotiate, which means that situations that could become tense instead become a win-win for both co-teachers. Show commitment to the team. Experienced collaborators care about their work, the co-teaching team per se, and the team's work. They show up every day with this care and commitment up front. 1. Treat others in a respectful and supportive manner. Excellent collaborators treat fellow collaborators with courtesy and consideration, not just some of the time but consistently. 1. Work as a problem solver. Co-teaching teams need to deal with problems. Excellent collaborators are willing to deal with all kinds of issues in a solutions-oriented manner. They're problem solvers, not problem avoiders. 1. Be optimistic and happy. To be an excellent collaborator in a co-teaching situation means you need to be the type of person others want to be around. Positive, confident people are attractive. They draw their collaborators to them and encourage recognition of achievements. Challenge 4. The need to communicate well. To meet this challenge, you need to reflect long and hard on what needs to be communicated and how to communicate it. Here's what to do. The two of you need to discuss and firm up the process for keeping a record of your communications, so that responsibility for the tasks is crystal clear and there is no confusion. The how, where, when, why, and what of planning your joint lessons. The how, where, when, why, and what of giving feedback to each other. Agree that both will be comfortable with this process. Consider that this is often best done in the cafe down the road instead of in the staff room, where there may be interruptions. An agreement that the feedback is welcome, must be objective and clearly explained, and that neither party will take any feedback personally. Emotions will play no part. The input is for the benefit of you both and the benefit of your learners. Regular communication sessions where you can both bounce ideas and approaches off each other. Firm up the how, where, when, why, and what for these sessions. Agreement that it's okay to disagree with each other and that in these cases the best negotiated agreement, based on a bit of giving and taking, will be fine. Challenge 5. Plan well. So, you feel you fit in, you're building a good rapport and relationship with your co-teacher, you sense there's a solid basis for collaboration, and you feel that the communication lines are open and working well. Let's now consider the final piece in the co-teaching jigsaw, planning what needs to be done and how it needs to be done to ensure both of you, and your learners, will achieve the success you are aiming for. To meet this challenge, you need to reflect long and hard on what needs to be planned and how to plan it. Here's what to do. 1. Planning, in general. Agree that each must contribute fully to the planning process. What elements will be taught and by whom? What each will do during the lesson and that each role is equally important. What overall strategy, approach, model will be used to achieve the objective S. What must be done to ensure the learners see both of you as equal partners in the learning event. How the learners will be assessed and when. Planning the specific lesson in action. Agree that each will model successful collaboration in the classroom. Both your names will be pinned up to emphasize this partnership in teaching. The classroom space will be worked out equitably, and 2 teacher desks will need to be set up in agreed areas. Learners will be informed that this is a co-teaching event and the benefits of this will be set out. Both will have a lead role in the teaching and learners will recognize this. Both will take part in the assessment of the learners. There is or isn't a need for different groups of learners to be taught at the same time. Changes may need to be made during the lesson, depending upon certain agreed circumstances. Classroom management will be shared equally. 2. Post-lesson activity. Agree that each will provide feedback to the other. Each will take on board any changes or improvements for the future and continue to reflect on what may make the co-teaching event even better. Both will celebrate the success of the co-teaching event and make it known to others who have not yet tried this approach. Summary. Overcoming potential co-teaching challenges is all about research, thinking and planning. If you take on board all the practical points we have set out above, it's doubtful that you will face any co-teaching challenges. 2.5. Getting to grips with the school syllabus. 2.5.1. What's a syllabus? 1. Syllabus. Generally, a syllabus is a document that consists of a series of topics prescribed for an entire course of study. The actual components of the topics may be either content items, such as words, structures, functions, or they may be process items, such as tasks and methods. Sometimes a school department will decide to include some of their own specific rules and guidance which may not appear in another department's syllabus. For example, learners are expected to participate actively, bring textbooks to class, and complete homework assignments on time and so on. No syllabus is perfect, but you will have to be familiar with it if the school dictates that you must follow the syllabus. Note: in some schools overseas, there may not be a syllabus as described above. Sometimes a coursebook is used, and you follow that religiously whether it's good or bad. When you are new and inexperienced, it's best to accept the situation and get on with it. Gradually, you can add in your self-made supplementary materials and additional topics where you feel something is lacking. A general rule is that the more the school administrators see you working hard and guiding the learners to improve, the more flexibility you will be allowed in introducing new materials and topics. 2. Main features of a syllabus. There is no universal structure. Here is what a typical syllabus might look like. Syllabus items are ordered and should have explicit objectives which tell learners the language items, i.e., bits of language, e.g., words or structures they will have learned by the end of the course. It may contain a general time framework by the end of this course, but some syllabi break up the time framework of their components, prescribing, for example, the specific items that should be dealt with in the first month, in the second, and so on, and by the end of a course. A preferred approach or methodology the class uses may also be defined, e.g., the communicative approach. A syllabus may list recommended materials, such as principal textbooks, visual materials, or supplementary materials. A syllabus may explain assessment both in terms of elements to be assessed and how they are to be weighted. Some elements may be weighted, i.e., attributed more importance or value. It may show how the course fits into a broader context, the big picture. It may also establish a learning contract with learners by publicly stating policies, requirements, and procedures for the course. It may also set the tone for the course and convey how you perceive your role as the teacher and their role as learners. It is often designed to help learners assess their readiness for the course by identifying prerequisite areas of knowledge. It may be designed to help learners manage their learning by identifying outside resources and providing advice. It can be used to communicate course goals and content to you and your colleagues. The syllabus may be linked to or based upon a set coursebook which must be used. Note that you may still have to build in supplementary materials to suit particular groups or activities. Remember, no coursebook is perfect and can soon become out of date. 2.5.2. Choosing, adapting and creating materials. Following on from the final bullet point above, you may need to choose, modify and develop materials to ensure the best learning experience possible. Advantages. Here are some advantages. 1. You can ensure the materials better fit the context. Here are the main criticisms of coursebooks and accompanying ready-made materials. The coursebook and accompanying materials produced for the global EFL, including TEYL, market are often too generic. Often, they are not geared to specific groups of learners. Often, they are not geared to any specific educational or cultural context. They often contain functions and speech outputs based on situations that most foreign language learners will never be in. They are Anglo-centric in their construction and production and therefore do not reflect any local varieties of English. Anglo-centric typically means centered on or giving priority to England or things English. By choosing wisely from other sources, or by creating them yourself, you can ensure your materials will better fit the context. 2. You can make the materials meet the individual learner's needs. Commercially produced generic materials cannot address the needs of all the unique individual learners in classrooms. But you can by creating or adapting materials to the individual needs and learning preferences of learners. Creating or modifying materials that consider the learner's first language and the learner's culture and personal experiences. Creating or adapting materials at the right level for your learners, to ensure the materials present an appropriate challenge and degree of success. Changing the often repetitive model and organization in the coursebook to add more variety within the classroom to meet developing needs, e.g., using whatever is appropriate to reach the goal, topics, situations, functions, etc. 3. You can make them fit today's events. Commercially produced materials cannot keep up to date with local and international events. World and country changes can happen rapidly, and learning materials need to keep up with changes and happenings that are of particular interest to learners in their situation. Only teachers on the ground, as you will be, can make the materials relevant to today's world. 4. You can overcome the lack of finance. Many schools may not have the budget to supply resources for the TEFL classroom. Instead of moaning and groaning, most motivated teachers step up to the plate and design their materials as a matter of course. The school and your learners will be very appreciative of this. Disadvantage. There is one critical disadvantage of doing so: time spent. It takes lots and lots of time to choose, adapt, and create additional materials to fit the context and match learner needs and preferences. Where does the time go? It will likely be taken up by 1. Going through an interminable amount of inadequate materials on the internet until you find something you can use. 2. Adapting materials to ensure they meet your learner's needs as precisely as possible. 3. Ensuring the materials fit with the syllabus. 4. Ensuring the materials look good. 5. Ensuring the materials stretch your learners. 6. Ensuring the materials integrate all the language skills. 7. Ensuring coherence. That is, ensuring one piece of material links with another in steady progression towards the language learning goal. 8. Writing clear instructions. What's the best solution? The best solution is to create your materials. At first, this will seem time consuming, but gradually it will be much faster when you get into this habit. In Module 8, we will explore the types of supplementary materials you can create and how to do this. Then you'll see how easy it is. 2.6. Learner Levels. 2.6.1. CEFR, Common Labels, English Profile Facility. Note this, there is a lot of information here on the CEFR, Common Labels, and the English Profile Facility. This is information that is good to know and understand. We have taken this information from the relevant sources. However, since the information is lengthy and may require you to study this in depth at a later stage, we will not be assessing you on this information. So, decide to read and absorb this now or come back to this at a later stage if you wish. The information we are referring to is covered in this section 2.6.1. Unfortunately, some trainees who are studying other TEFL courses won't be aware of this. But, fortunately, you will. 1. CEFR. Different terminology is used in EFL when describing a learner's proficiency competency in language as compared to mainstream English classes in, for example, the USA or the UK. As you'll already know, measuring a learner's proficiency in a language is not an exact science. No universal system of rating exists. The Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, CEFR or CEF, is, perhaps, our best guide. There are other guides. Many organizations adapt the CEFR levels to suit their particular levels. Fortunately, nearly all good coursebooks will identify which CEFR level the materials are intended for, and schools will have similar class labeling to indicate what level the learners are studying. So, there's no need to worry. The Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, CEFR. What is it? The CEFR is a standard, international scale of levels for language learning. It has 6 levels in ascending order from A1 to C2. The CEFR gives you a detailed description of learner level by skill, in a language-neutral format. Because it is language neutral, it can be used for any language in the world. It is useful for school directors, syllabus designers, teachers, teacher trainers, and proficient learners. Language testers and examination boards are increasingly using the CEFR as their scale of levels, though some give each level their own name. The table we will explore in a moment shows the 3 bands AC, with each of those bands divided into 2, giving us 6 main levels. It also provides descriptors which represent what a learner should be able to do at each level. You may have heard of other learner level terminology in EFL, e.g. beginner, intermediate, and advanced. Very loosely, you can view the CEFR levels as similar to beginner, intermediate, and advanced, though the CEFR levels are more precise than these terms and calls them basic, independent, and proficient. 2. The CEFR's approach, communicative language competence. The The CEFR's approach is based on the notion of communicative language competence, the increasing ability to communicate and operate effectively in the target language. It will be useful for you if we expand a bit on the CEFR's view of communicative language competence. Communicative language competence has several components. It includes linguistic, socio-linguistic, and pragmatic competences. Each of these competences is made up of knowledge, aptitudes, and skills. Linguistic competence. Linguistic competence comprises the knowledge and skills related to lexis generally, words and phrases. Phonology generally, relationships among the speech sounds. Syntax generally, the arrangement of words and phrases to create well-formed sentences in a language. Other features of language systems considered independently of the sociolinguistic impact of variations in use in the pragmatic functions of the utterances produced. It concerns not only the range and quality of knowledge, for example, the scope and precision of lexical knowledge, but also involves cognitive organization and the way this knowledge is stored in memory. For example, the question of how a lexical item fits into the networks of associations the speaker has available. It is also concerned with accessibility, for example, how an item can be recalled, activated, and its availability for use. Sociolinguistic competence. Sociolinguistic competence refers to the knowledge and skills involved in using language functionally in a social context. Since language is a social phenomenon, its use requires sensitivity to social norms and customs which affect to a significant degree all linguistic communication between representatives of different cultures, even if the participants are frequently unaware of them. These social norms affect, amongst other factors, rules of address, greetings and politeness, the way in which relations between generations, sexes, people of different social status, social groupings are expressed through special language markers, linguistically codified rituals, differences in register, dialect and accent, through vocal rhythms, for example. Linguistic competence leads us to consider social and intercultural parameters and how they influence language use. Pragmatic competence. Pragmatic competence involves the functional uses of linguistic resources carrying out language functions, speech acts, using scenarios or predetermined scripts of interactional exchanges. It also involves mastery of discourse, cohesion and coherence, the recognition of text types and genres, using irony or parody. The development of pragmatic skills is strongly influenced by interactive experience and by the cultural environment. Let's have a look at these CEFR bands and level descriptors at a global level. You will find that the global scale is a useful starting point. Study this well. It's not difficult. It's an excellent guide, an aid memoir, which will keep you on track when you start on your TEFL journey. CEFR bands and level descriptors, global level. Level descriptors. Proficient user. C2. Can understand with ease virtually everything heard or read. Can summarize information from different spoken and written sources, reconstructing arguments and accounts in a coherent presentation. Can express him/herself spontaneously, very fluently and precisely, differentiating finer shades of meaning even in the most complex situations. Proficient user. C1. Can understand a wide range of demanding, longer texts, and recognize implicit meaning. Can express him/herself fluently and spontaneously without much obvious searching for expressions. Can use language flexibly and effectively for social, academic and professional purposes. Can produce clear, well-structured, detailed text on complex subjects, showing controlled use of organizational patterns, connectors and cohesive devices. Independent user. B2. Can understand the main ideas of complex text on both concrete and abstract topics, including technical discussions in his/her field of specialization. Can interact with a degree of fluency and spontaneity that makes regular interaction with native speakers quite possible without strain for either party. Can produce clear, detailed text on a wide range of subjects and explain a viewpoint on a topical issue, giving the advantages and disadvantages of various options. Independent user. B1. Can understand the main points of clear standard input on familiar matters regularly encountered in work, school, leisure, etc. Can deal with most situations likely to arise while traveling in an area where the language is spoken. Can produce simple connected text on familiar topics or of personal interest. Can describe experiences and events, dreams, hopes and ambitions, and briefly give reasons and explanations for opinions and plans. Basic user. A2. Can understand sentences and frequently used expressions related to areas of most immediate relevance, e.g., basic personal and family information, shopping, local geography, employment. Can communicate in simple and routine tasks requiring a simple and direct exchange of information on familiar and routine matters. Can describe in simple terms aspects of his/her background, immediate environment, and matters in areas of immediate need. Basic user. A1. Can understand and use familiar everyday expressions and very basic phrases aimed at the satisfaction of needs of a concrete type. Can introduce him/herself and others and can ask and answer questions about personal details such as where he/she lives, people he/she knows, and things he/she has. Can interact in a simple way provided the other person talks slowly and clearly and is prepared to help. We can also use the plus to indicate the top half of a level. For example, B1 plus means the top half of the B1 range. You will find this convention in various course books. 3. Why do we need the CEFR? Even among teachers of the same language in similar contexts, there can be much variety in what is meant by terms like beginner, intermediate, or advanced. This variability increases significantly across different languages, in different countries, with different age ranges of learners, etc. The CEFR makes it easier for all of us to talk about language levels reliably and with shared understanding. 4. What is it used for? The CEFR is used for many different practical purposes. Developing syllabuses. Creating texts, exams. Marking exams. Evaluating language learning needs. Designing courses. Developing learning materials. Continuous assessment of others, or self-assessment. Teacher training programs. 5. Is it just about levels? The CEFR has been very significant in language learning and teaching because its impact goes beyond merely describing learner levels. It has underpinned a particular approach to language learning as the one most commonly recommended or expected in language teaching today. This is the communicative approach we explored earlier. It's not just about levels. The descriptions of levels in the CEFR are skills-based and take the form of can-do statements, as in the examples below. These descriptions of ability focus on communicative purpose and make for a very practical approach, which looks at what people can do, rather than on specific linguistic knowledge. The CEFR is particularly useful because it applies the same set of levels to all the various sub-skills and areas of competence. The basic 4 skills: speaking, reading, writing, and listening. Communicative language, e.g., turn-taking, asking for clarification. Types of interaction, e.g., obtaining goods and services, interviewing. And more linguistic skills, e.g., lexical range, phonological control. It allows you to link up skills in each of these areas with the learner's overall level. Examples of can-do statements from the CEFR. Can describe in simple terms aspects of his/her background, immediate environment, and matters in areas of immediate need. A2. Global scale. Can understand enough to follow extended speech on abstract and complex topics beyond his/her field, though he/she may need to confirm occasional details, especially if the accent is unfamiliar. C1. Listening. Can understand a wide range of long and complex texts, appreciating subtle distinctions of style and implicit as well as explicit meaning. C2, reading. Can write personal letters and notes asking for or conveying simple information of immediate relevance, getting across the point she feels to be important. B1, written interaction. Can use stock phrases e.g., that's a difficult question to answer, to gain time and keep the turn while formulating what to say. B2, turn taking. You can view a list of can do statements at web links 168045B15E. 6. What's in it for you? How can the CEFR be useful for you? 1. Understanding language levels better. The CEFR helps you to understand a standardized terminology for describing language levels. National, local, and school policies are increasingly being expressed in CEFR levels, and so it's essential to understand what they mean. 2. Seeing more clearly what learners need to work on. The CEFR describes what learners need to be able to do to reach the next level. You will find it particularly useful in showing how different component skills are described at each level. You may have an idea of what a B2 learner is like, but what should they be able to do in terms of listening to lectures, speeches, or writing correspondence, or spoken fluency? The CEFR helps you see what is needed for different aspects of learning English. 3. Assessment grids. The CEFR scales are also beneficial for creating your assessment grids. These use the descriptors in the scales and can help teachers with assessing their learners during and at the end of a course. They can also be used for self-assessment by the learners, though it's usually necessary to simplify them for this purpose, or even translate them in some situations. You can find links to official translations of some of the scales on the Council of Europe website, web links. 4. Curriculum plan. If a teacher is responsible for working out what is going to be taught in a class, just her own or for the whole school, it is beneficial to use the CEFR as a broad framework. Look carefully at the descriptors for the levels you need, not just the global scale, but component scales as well where relevant. What do you want your learners to achieve in each course on their path to the target level? This can be further elaborated by looking at the information coming from the English profile, which we'll come to in a moment. Of course, most teachers do not need to create their curriculum. By choosing a coursebook that is aligned to the CEFR, you have a syllabus designed by experts, which you may then choose to adapt for your circumstances. 7. Should you introduce your learners to the CEFR? Yes, it's advantageous for learners to understand how mastery of a language builds up from beginner to mastery. Of course, this needs to be suitable for their level and age, and it is probably adults and teenagers who will find it useful. Scales, adapted to their language level, are very useful for self-assessment, which can be very helpful in developing language skills. 8. Common labels. Other frequently used labels for the various levels, both for the learner and coursebook, are in ascending learning level from beginner, advanced, post-intermediate, intermediate, pre-intermediate, elementary, beginner. Get to grips with this labeling structure too. Note that under this structure, there is an additional level for elementary and a different heading of post-intermediate compared to higher intermediate on the CEFR levels. The two different structures have much the same descriptor content, it's just that they have been moved around a bit. So, a few tweaks may have to be made. Remember, don't worry about this. Until the time, you would be best advised to use the grading of items provided by the class coursebook as a guide to the language that you should be presenting, if you have a class coursebook. And, of course, you can seek help and advice from your head of department, director of studies, and your new teaching colleagues. 9. English profile. The English Profile program involves major research projects that are all working towards a reliable, detailed description of the actual learner English that is typical of each CEFR level. Initially, the focus has been on vocabulary and grammar, and the English vocabulary profile is now complete for all 6 levels, A1 C2. A separate research team is developing a similar resource, the English Grammar Profile, which describes the gradual mastery of grammar across the 6 CEFR levels. Cambridge University Press has given teachers around the world access to their research into vocabulary learning across the CEFR. Go to the English Profile website, www.englishprofile.org, and click on Free Registration English Vocabulary Profile. This will allow you to find out which words and phrases, and individual meanings of each word, are typically mastered by learners at each CEFR level. It is a valuable tool to make decisions about what to teach learners as they progress. Cambridge University Press authors and editors make extensive use of this research in developing their course materials. 2.7. False beginners versus absolute beginners. Before we leave the subject of levels, we must make you aware of the phenomenon of false beginners. By the time you are in action, you will have picked up this very important point from this course: beware of false beginners. False beginners. 2.8 Practical tips for the beginner level. While we are discussing absolute beginners, it seems a good idea to give you some guidance on teaching beginner level learners. To get the best out of your beginner level learners and aid their progress, you need to reflect deeply on your teaching approach. For example, you need to ensure you have a clear objective of what you are aiming to achieve during the lesson. Do not try to accomplish too much. There may be exceptions to the rule you are teaching. Leave these for another day. Time to reflect. Following on from the information above, what do you think would be sound practical advice for teaching absolute beginners? Take some time out to make a drink and/or sandwich and reflect on this. Then you can return to check your thoughts with what we think below. Have a go. You can pause the video here. Well done. Practical advice for teaching beginners. 1. Ensure you have a clear objective of what you are aiming to achieve during the lesson. Do not try to accomplish too much. There may be exceptions to the rule you are teaching. Leave these for another day. 2. Ensure you have clearly mapped out the steps of your lesson. Stick to these. There needs to be a logical progression. This will also ensure your timing is right. 3. Engage and involve your learners. Do not act as if you are the sage on the stage. Engagement and involvement are critical. 4. Praise them several times, e.g., when they understand, complete an activity, etc. 5. Involve them through questions, drills, and exercises. 6. Tell them what you and they are going to do and why it's essential. Remind them why it's important on several occasions. 7. Use a variety of activities, examples to get your point over. 8. Also, make effective use of gestures and mime to help get the message across. 9. Get them involved in pair and group work. Use pair or group activities that encourage interaction by providing learners with situations in which they must negotiate meaning with partners or group members to complete a task. When speakers negotiate meaning, they are attempting to reach a clear understanding of what each person is saying. Achieving this involves several strategies such as rephrasing, asking for clarification, and confirming what you think you have understood. 10. Ensure your instructions are clear. 11. Never give out the worksheets until you are sure they know what to do. 12. Model what they need to do. That is, show them how to complete an activity. You can do it, or you can choose a learner or pair to do this. 13. Always check their understanding before they start an exercise. 14. Ensure any activities they are doing to demonstrate accuracy are scaffolded, i.e., arranged from easy to hard. 15. Monitor when they are completing an activity. 16. Ignore spelling during this lesson. Your focus is on ensuring they understand the learning point. You can come back to spelling at a later time. 17. Note any recurring error. This can be addressed at the start of the next lesson. 18. Correct as a whole class in a random fashion. 19. Checking pronunciation via whole class and individual drilling is vital. 20. Leave ample time to summarize what they have learned. They can tell you what they have learned. Ask them to tell you why this learning is vital for them. A pair or pairs can do a final, quick demonstration if time allows. Always finish by praising what they have achieved. 21. Keep it all simple, grade your language carefully. Remember, there are no prizes for you for using fancy, complicated language. 22. You'll need to speak slower but not too slow and deliberate such that it sounds like you are talking to a baby. Otherwise, the learners may feel patronized. 23. Don't miss out essential words and structures. Don't say, you go to party tonight. Learners need to hear specific structures even if you haven't reached that learning point with them. Otherwise, they may think that's how English really is spoken. 24. Make a personal connection. Ensure you know the learners' names. If you have any difficulty with this, draw up a seating plan with their names on it. When you're away from your desk, you can use some tricks of the trade. 1. You. Well done, Maria, whose name you have remembered. Who will I ask now? You tell me, Maria. You can point to the person and say their name. Maria. Juan, pointing to Juan. You. Thank you, Maria. Juan, whose name you had forgotten, what is the dog's name? 2. You. The next learner I will ask is a boy, he has a red shirt, and he sits near the window. Who is it? They. Alejandro. Pointing to him. You. That's right. Well done. Alejandro, whose name you had forgotten, what is the dog's name? 25. Learn a bit of their language. They will appreciate your effort. The learners will enjoy helping you learn a few new words each day. By learning bits of a new language, you will have more empathy for your learners' struggles to learn English. 26. Review continuously. You are the beginner's textbook and study guide as well as their teacher. Provide review sessions at the beginning of every class, so learners will practice what they've learned and acquire the language. 27. Minimize your learners' cognitive burden. Cognitive, as you will know, is the fancy word for the mental action or process of acquiring knowledge and understanding through thought, experience, and the senses. When teaching groups of beginner learners, it's best not to write a lot of information on the board and have learners copy it down while you continue to explain concepts. We can easily forget these learners cannot multitask with their current language proficiency level, and it is essential to break down tasks into smaller components. Do one thing at a time. Note that most of the points above will also apply to a good number of elementary learners. 2.9. Example lesson plan. It now seems logical and apt to introduce you, softly, to lesson planning and lesson presentation for all learner levels. Lesson planning and lesson presentation is the most critical teacher skill of all. Planning lessons and presenting lessons successfully will be your core activity for most of your time when you are teaching. To ensure you get this skill right the first time, we will introduce it gradually. Here we introduce you to the 5-step lesson plan, which you will be using for all your lesson planning, no matter which learner level you will be teaching. Most of our teachers have been using this for years and years. Here is a brief explanation of the 5-step lesson plan. We will delve into this again in Module 6. Then, in great depth in Module 7. Step 1. Opening. Your learners need to know where you are taking them, i.e., what they are about to learn and why it's important to them. But there's more to a good opening. It needs to engage your learners and incite their interest. Step 2. Introduction of new material. Here you will clearly and succinctly introduce your learners to the new learning. It could be a new language form, skill or concept which you'll introduce, explain, model, demonstrate, and so on. Step 3. Guided practice. Your learners must have sufficient time and opportunity to practice their new learning. In this step, it will be guided, controlled practice, practice which is supported by you. The principal intention of this step is to help the learners internalize the learning, in a sheltered environment, from their short-term memory information memorized during your introduction into their long-term memory for the future. Step 4. Independent practice. This is where learners refine the language form, skill or concept on their own, without your assistance. It's generally free, uncontrolled practice, but you will still be there to give help and guidance where needed. This step is usually conducted in pairs or groups. Step 5. Closing. Here your focus is on keeping up their engagement by asking the learners what they have learned. Ask them, "What have we learned in this lesson?" Keeping up their interest by asking the learners to tell you about the significance of what they have learned. Ask them, "What is the significance, importance of what we have learned? How will this benefit you?" Issuing homework, as necessary. Activity. Example lesson plan. 1. Go to a quiet place. This activity requires your full concentration. 2. It's not difficult but it needs total focus to get the right feel of it. 3. We have set out your example lesson plan below, on 2 pages. Note that this is a rough template. In Module 7, we will introduce you to a thoroughly professional template. 4. Through time, when you are teaching, your lesson plans may be a good bit shorter, by adding in abbreviations, using mnemonics, etc. 5. Take your time and trawl through this example lesson plan several times. Get the feel of the order of the steps and what you do at each step. 6. Once you've got a good feel of it, refer back to section 2.8. See if you can identify some of the listed practical points within the lesson plan. Every listed point won't be in the lesson plan because some of the listed points relate to general advice, such as the teacher learning a bit of her learner's language. 7. Try not to query too much. For example, we haven't included handouts or worksheets. Accept it as it is at this stage. Everything will be explained as we carry on through the course. Your entire focus should be on getting the feel of the order of the steps and what you do at each step. 8. Hopefully, you'll recognize that the 5-step lesson plan is an excellent format, keeping you and your learners on track all of the time. Lesson plan. Comparatives of adjectives level, CEFRA 1 class, 1B page 1. Objective. To introduce my learners to the comparative form of one adjective big, 2, bigger, initially and demonstrate they can use this structure with many other short adjectives. Step 1. Opening, getting them engaged and telling them what's going to happen. Show building blocks. Build a big tower. Elicit, big. Repeat out loud. Then build an even bigger tower. Through head shaking and face gestures, try to elicit words for this bigger tower. No correct responses. Then focus on the word big using Angelica and Carlos, front of class. Don't have a word to describe Carlos, who is bigger. They return to their seats. Tell them, it's important to know this and other words to describe differences in people, animals, things. Show words on board, then use Angelica and Carlos again. Then a written activity and some fun games. Step 2. Introduction of new material, introducing the new learning. Board. Draw Angelica. Then draw Carlos. What can they see? Carlos is. Gestures and hand movements to show Carlos bigger but don't have a word. Tell them Carlos is bigger. Write bigger under Carlos, underlining the ending er. Get them to repeat bigger as a class and ask learners at random to repeat the word. Get them to repeat, Angelica is big. Carlos is bigger. Point to the ending er. Bring out Angelica and Carlos again. Ask the class at random. Who is big? Who is bigger? Confirm and praise. Angelica and Carlos return to their seats. Now ask all the learners to get into pairs, swiftly, with one partner being bigger than the other. Go round the pairs, checking they can identify themselves as big and bigger. Confirm and praise. Now demonstrate again from board work that for the comparative won't use this word, they add to the basic word when the other person, thing or animal is bigger, both in speaking and writing. Remind and demonstrate to them on the board that this happens with most words that they know, e.g. small smaller, young younger, old older, miming these and using the learners to demonstrate your point. Keep them engaged. Emphasizing these new words is very important. But they'll use lots of words they already know. Finish with a fast-moving question-answer session to ensure engagement and interest. Step 3. Guided practice, practicing the new learning, to check their accuracy, under my guidance and control. Activity 1. Tell and demonstrate. Pin up blue tack flip chart sheet, a large copy of the worksheet. Ensure all can see. Hold up the worksheet. Explain they are going to write in their answers on their worksheet. The exercise has 4 questions. In questions 1 to 4, they need to fill in words, using the same form as they learned about the word big by adding on the end of the word. Check understanding. Hand out the worksheet. Then monitor, help and correct throughout this step. Ignore spelling. Then correct as a whole class, asking pairs at random to give their answers, confirming each got it right and checking pronunciation by class drilling and by random selection of learners. Confirm and praise. Clear up any mistakes. Then, L will introduce some realia, toy animals and things that they can compare, giving out their responses orally, while using the practiced structure, e.g. bigger, smaller, younger, older. This will further consolidate their learning. Page 2. Step 4. Independent practice, practicing the new learning, to check their fluency, independently, I'm observing and listening, but will help as need be. Emphasize again that these new words are very important. Again, work in pairs, which always engages them. Keep encouraging and praising them, this also engages them. Clearly state what I want them to do. Activity 2. Demonstrate by using a flip chart sheet with a blown up copy of their worksheet, a copy of a map of South America, learners are Colombian, with country names clear. Pin it up with blue tack. There are no sizes on the map, learners will decide visually and ask me to referee if necessary. Will identify who is A and who is B in the pair. A selects 2 countries, tells B what they are and A writes in his workbook, for example, Bolivia is big. Colombia is bigger. At the same time, B is the same for 2 countries, but he must choose 2 different countries from those that A chose. A now reads aloud his first comparison to B, who reads and checks aloud the comparison and country size, and then B does the same with A. They do the same format again, choosing different pairs of countries, this time using smaller. Check understanding by questions and eliciting. Use a pair of learners to model this. Give out worksheets. During all this time I will be walking about, listening, answering a few questions, giving help as necessary, but not teaching or interrupting the flow. I will quietly ask the pairs to read out their selections to me. Monitor the structure of the sentence and the pronunciation of big, bigger, and smaller. Confirm and praise. Take note of any recurring errors and address this at the start of their next lesson. Stop activity. Step 5. Closing, summarizing and checking further what they've learned and discussing how useful this is for them. Praising them. I'll get their engagement by telling them they have done very well and that I have some very important questions to ask them. I'll tell them I need their help. It's vital in this step to ask the learners to summarize what they learned. So, I'll ask them. They can give an example to support this. It's also important to remind them about what I said at the start, that these new words are important. So, I'll ask them, do you think these new words are important, helpful, etc.? How? Why? My learners have been given opportunities to demonstrate their mastery, so far, of some comparatives, but I think it's always good to have a final roundup, particularly focusing on those who did not get enough time to display their mastery fully during the activities. So, at great pace, and giving lots of praise, I will ask some of the pairs if they would like to come out to the front of the class and do a short display in front of the class. I'll include other pairs, though, who can read out their attempts while seated. Finally, I will remind them that they have been involved in speaking, listening, writing and reading English during this lesson, and I will praise them for this. End of lesson plan. Well done. Another module completed. What you have learned here will help you better understand your role and the knowledge, ability, skills and habits required in your role. Time for a little break. Then, come back and have a go at quiz 2. It's not too challenging. Good luck. End of Module 2 quiz. You require 40% to pass this quiz. 1. The role of manager entails stepping back and allowing students to find their way along the language journey. 1. True. False. 2. Which of the following is not an advantage deriving from you choosing, modifying and developing materials? 1. You can make sure your materials better fit the context. You can make the materials relevant to today's world. You can ensure they are Anglo-centric in their construction and production. You can change the often repetitive model and organization in the coursebook. 3. You can assume that your expectations of the classroom will be the same as the learner's expectations. 1. True. False. 4. When building rapport with a co-teacher, it's important to emphasize the differences between you and the other person. 1. True. False. 5. Which of the following is unlikely to help you build a strong relationship with your co-teacher? 1. Show you want to help. Tell more than you ask. Demonstrate your competence. Display honesty. 6. Coursebooks and accompanying ready-made materials never contain functions and speech outputs based on situations that most foreign language learner will never be in. 1. True. False. 7. Don't judge the students on the basis of your own cultural background and educational experiences. 1. True. False. 8. In relation to the possible challenges you may face in co-teaching, which of the following is incorrect? 1. Possible difficulty in you not collaborating well with your co-teacher. Possible difficulty in planning well with your co-teacher. Possible difficulty in you not communicating well with your co-teacher. Possible difficulty in your co-teacher not realizing that the onus is on him per to fit in. 9. What additional attribute do we think should be included within the definition of the word competent? 1. Habits. Creative ideas. Reflections. Thoughts. 10. In relation to language learning and acquisition outside the classroom, which of the following is incorrect? 1. Being able to deal with some everyday language transactions in the outside world will be motivating. Many outside activities can be carried out in non-English speaking countries, where there are native English speakers. Outside world activities should be restricted to intermediate and advanced students. Teachers should view the outside world as an extension of the classroom. 11. When we encourage the development of international, multicultural, gender, and indigenous and other perspectives, we are fostering the value of 1. Trust. Diversity. Integrity. Responsibility. 12. Being a controller is one of the roles of a teacher. 1. True. False. 13. One critical disadvantage from you choosing, modifying and developing your materials is time spent. 1. True. False. 14. Being a needs analyst is primarily identifying the social needs of your learners. 1. True. False. 15. In the teacher observation form, an important instructional skill is that teacher talking time should be maximized. 1. True. False. So go for it and try out the quiz. You can pause the video now. And click on the next video to get to the next module.